It won't surprise many of you, but Heather and I have quite a few videos of our children, and there are some that we absolutely love and that we love to go back and to watch. Some of them that embarrass them. One of our favorites, that's one of our Easter ones, is one where Jake looks at his Easter basket and then he turns to his mother and says, "It's everything I wanted, Mama. It is precious. Don't tell him I told y'all about it," because he's not doesn't love it, but we think it's incredibly cute. One of our favorite ones of Scout, we have a video of her telling a fictional story, keyword fictional, but she is completely convinced that this took place, a story of Jake throwing her out of a window, and she's about 3 years old and is absolutely convinced that this really took place and is very convincing in her storytelling with the details that this took place. And we have a lot of these videos, but one of them that that we just love. It's a very short video, but it happened on the kid's second birthday. So on there, kind of to set the scene, it is their second birthday. We are living in an apartment in Fultondale. I have pastored Gardendale Church of the Nazarene for a good 2 weeks at this point, and it was a long time ago. I had very little gray in my hair or my beard, but we were living in Fultondale. The kids got up. We fed them breakfast. I'm videoing them the morning of their second birthday. We're getting them ready, and I guess we got Scout ready, and then Scout disappears. And we don't know where Scout goes in our apartment, but then we hear this small kind of little cry for help coming from Heather's office, which she wasn't supposed to be in, but she is in Heather's office, and so we hear this little cry for help, and so I have the camera with me, so we go in to Heather's office to see what's going on. And so it's only about 55 seconds, so I want y'all to watch that. It's just the Scouts, or their second birthday.
Are you stuck? Do you need help?
Is there a problem, Scout?
What's wrong? You're stuck?
Yeah.
Is it your birthday today? How old are you?
8.
You're not 8. How old are you?
9.
You're not 9. How old are you?
8.
Scout,
How old are you today?
Scout, look at the camera. How old are you?
How old are you? Are you 1?
There's a line at the beginning that is what sticks in my mind, other than her saying that she's 8. But the line at the very beginning where Scout makes this statement, "I'm stuck. I'm stuck." That line has been going through my head this week. It's a funny video, it's a cute video, but I keep coming back to the words, "I'm stuck." We can laugh about the video and because it's cute, and she wasn't really stuck. But for a lot of us, to be stuck is something that we do know. To be stuck is to be somewhere that we don't want to be. Sometimes we use other terms than stuck. Sometimes we'll make statements like, "I feel like I'm wading through cement," or "I'm spinning my wheels," or "for every 3 steps forward, I take 2 steps back." Sometimes we feel stuck for a lot of different reasons. We feel stuck financially. We feel stuck relationally. There is depression. There is addiction. There is brokenness. We feel stuck at work. We feel stuck spiritually. We feel stuck because where I am is not where I wanted to be. When we look at our lives, we feel stuck because we ask the question, what have I done with my life? We still feel stuck physically. Health, depression. Sometimes we feel stuck mentally that I just can't get out of my head. But for all of us at some point, we feel stuck. For some of us, we feel stuck right now. For some of us, maybe we have come out of a season of feeling stuck. Maybe we are going into a season of feeling stuck. but all of us at some point have been stuck. Today's story is a story of two people, Cleopas and an unnamed other, who in many ways are stuck. I want to walk through the passage with you, and I want you to see some of this because this is a famous story that many of you will know. But I want to walk through this story with you. We are in Luke chapter 24. We'll start with verse 13. Says, "Now that same day, two of them," we haven't learned their names yet, but two of them were on their way to a village called Emmaus. So, a couple things there. That same day, what day is this in the story? Do y'all remember? It's Easter. This is Easter evening, all right? We don't know why Cleopas and the unnamed other, we don't know why these two individuals have been in Jerusalem. We can take a pretty good guess. More than likely, they went into Jerusalem because it was Passover, and they went in to celebrate Passover. And so Passover has ended, and they are leaving Jerusalem, and they are headed back home to Emmaus, which we'll see here, which is about 7 miles from Jerusalem. So it's a pretty good walk. And there they are walking together. It says together they were discussing everything that had taken place. And while they were discussing and arguing, Jesus himself came near and began to walk along with them. But they were prevented from recognizing him. So they're walking along, discussing what had been going on and discussing the stories of the weekend. And as they're walking along, Jesus shows up and walks with them, and the scripture tells us they were prevented from recognizing him. Now, the way I grew up reading this passage, and I think it's a valid reading, but the way I grew up was that somehow that God had closed their vision, that they didn't see who Jesus was. And I think we could read that, but I don't think we have to read it that way. But maybe just what had happened over the weekend kept them from realizing who this was with them. And I think when we look at it this way, we have to ask the question, what prevents you in the moments when you're stuck? What prevents you from recognizing Jesus in your midst? What prevents you from seeing him? We continue in the story, verse 17, and then he asked them, what is this dispute? What is this argument you're having with each other as you are walking? And they stopped walking and looked discouraged. The one named Cleopas answered him, "Are you the only visitor in Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that had happened in these days?" "What things?" he asked them. So he said to them, "The things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, powerful in action and speech before God and all people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him." Verse 21, but we were hoping. We were hoping that he was the one about to redeem Israel. Now, if we want to translate this, a little bit better translation in Greek is not the kind of "we were hoping," but just a very simple statement: we had hoped. We had hoped. We had hoped that he was the one who was about to redeem Israel. We had hoped. Had hoped, but not hoped anymore. This, I think, is a very human response for us. We had hoped that God was going to show up when I was stuck. We had hoped. This is the pain and the sorrow of losing hope. This is the pit in your stomach when you realize that you are stuck without hope. So verse 22. Moreover, some women from our group astounded us. They arrived early at the tomb. And when they didn't find his body, they came and reported that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Some of these who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women said, but they didn't see him. He said to them, how foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Wasn't it necessary for the Messiah to suffer these things and enter into his glory? Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted for them the things concerning himself in all the scriptures. Verse 28, then they came to the village where they were going, and he gave the impression that he was going farther. But they urged him, stay with us, because it's almost evening and the day is almost over. So he went in to stay with them. We don't know if they're, is this an inn? Is this home? We don't know where they are. Verse 30, it was as he reclined at the table with them that he took the bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, but he disappeared from their sight. Now let's look at verse 30 and 31 together. Verse 30. So he goes into the house, he reclines, he gets to the table with them. He reclined at the table. With that, he took bread, blessed it, broke it, gave it to them. Verse 31, then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, but he disappeared from their sight. At this point, I don't want you to miss kind of a central Lucan understanding of the church. What Luke thinks about you and I know he didn't think this far ahead, but what Luke thinks about you and I. As we have walked through Luke's gospel, we have heard many stories about the 12 disciples. We can go back a little bit in the text and we can read about Maundy Thursday. And there in that room, as the disciples came together, John tells us that he washed their feet. Luke tells us that they reclined at the table. He passed the bread. He passed the cup. He then broke the bread. None of us were there, were we? Cleopas and this unnamed other, they weren't there either. For the rest of eternity, we are secondhand Christians. We weren't there. Cleopas and the person with Cleopas, their hopes are dashed and they are stuck in the loss of hope. They never experienced the pre-resurrection Christ. They never experienced the post-resurrection Christ, just like you and me. They weren't in the upper room. They didn't see Jesus break the bread. They didn't see him pass the cup. It's a story that they have been told. And for all eternity, Cleopas, the other person, the church fathers, all us, we're all just second-hand Christians. But that's not what Luke tells us. Luke tells us a different story. Luke tells us a story. And it's a story of Cleopas and this person coming to a table and sitting in the very presence of Christ. And there in the very presence of Christ, they come to the table, and as he took the bread, he blessed it and broke it and gave it to them. And then they saw him. Then they saw him with their very own eyes. And Luke tells us a story that says to us, dear church, that's you and me, dear church, when you come to the table, when the bread is blessed, when it is broken, when it is given to you, Christ is present. And you are not secondhand Christians, because you are at his table. And when you are at his table, his presence makes you a first-generation Christian. For all eternity. That when we come together as a church, when we come together and receive communion, that we are first-generation Christians. And this is the story that Luke tells us in his gospel. This is the story we're going to pick up next week in the book of Acts. The story of what it is to be the church, what it is to come as God's people to the table. That these aren't just stories that we pass on. It's not just something that we have heard, but it's something that we have experienced, that we have lived. And he comes to the table. He reclines at the table, he breaks the bread, he blesses it, he gives it to us, and there we are in the presence of the Holy God. The story continues from there. It says that, verse 32, they said to each other, as after he disappeared, they said to each other, "Weren't our hearts burning within us while he was talking with us on the road and explaining the scriptures to us?" That very hour they got up, returned to Jerusalem, went back 7 miles in the dark. They found the 11 and those with them gathered together and said, "The Lord has truly been raised and has appeared to Simon." Then they began to describe what had happened on the road and how he was made known to them in the breaking of bread. Cleopas. Cleopas and this other unnamed person were stuck. They were stuck, and they say to Jesus, "I had hoped." I had hoped. There's a song that pops up periodically on my playlists, and somehow the algorithm sent me this song, and it continues to pop up periodically, and just a couple weeks ago it popped up. It's a secular artist. I won't tell you who it is because it might have a couple bad words in it, but it's a secular artist. And in the song, the artist is having a conversation with himself. I think to make the story a little bit easier, we could say he's having a conversation between his head and his heart. And in the story and the conversation that he is having, he is stuck. He is stuck in depression. He is stuck in where he wanted to be, where he wanted to go, and where he is. He is stuck between his aspirations and stuck exactly where he doesn't want to be. It's a sad conversation. It's a battle. As the song wraps up, the tone of the song changes, and the story between his head and his heart changes, and a third person shows up. And in the song, the third person makes the statement, "I go by many names. Some people know me as Hope." In his brokenness, in his doubt, in his stuckness, hope shows up. I had hoped that. Hope shows up. And as hope shows up, the song ends. And as the song ends, the artist then just begins talking and telling his story. It's a story of being stuck. It's a story that's not unlike most of us. It's a story that says, I had hoped. I had hoped. In the story, he makes this incredible statement. He says it wasn't David versus Goliath, it was a pendulum, eternally swaying from dark to light. And the more intensely the light shone, the darker the shadow it cast. The lighter it became, the darker the shadow in his life. And I think we could identify with that in so many ways when we are stuck. Matter of fact, we do exactly what Cleopas and the other person do. They are stuck and they stop walking and looked discouraged. That's us sometimes, isn't it? We just don't know what to do next. We don't know the next steps to take, and so we stop and we are discouraged. And in the midst of being discouraged, in the midst where we begin to focus on our stuckness, that's a word that I've made up. We're stuck in our stuckness. In the midst of that, so many times we are prevented from recognizing, from seeing the way that God has shown up in our lives, seeing the way that God is in the midst of us being stuck. We don't see him. And there are days that we cry out, we were hoping. Or I was hoping. I was hoping that God would show up. I was hoping that this would take place. And the beauty of this story is Cleopas then tells them, let me tell you, there are people who have seen the risen Christ, and we don't know if we believe that God could show up in the midst of this. And in the very midst of them being stuck, God has shown up to walk with them in the moments of their hopelessness, in the moments of their discouragement, in the moments of the times when they don't think they can walk on. The entire time Christ is there, walking with them. Walking the journey with them. It's on those days, the days that we have hoped, the days that we stop walking and look discouraged, the days that we are prevented from recognizing him, it's on those days. Maybe we need more than any other day. Come to the table. To come to the table, to bless the bread, to break the bread, and to realize that the very hope that we were missing is here. The very hope that the world is looking for is in our midst. The very hope that we did not think heard us when we were stuck was with us the entire time. As we have gone through Lent, we have received communion every week together. And this week we were not supposed to receive communion together because Lent was over and we had it last Easter. And so we were going to take a little break. And then I started writing the sermon and realized there was no way possible to preach this sermon this week without communion at the end. Without being reminded that when we come together as God's people, that we come together to know God is present. That these aren't just stories that we read in a Bible, that these aren't just ancient things that are told to us, but they are stories that live within our hearts of how God has been with us. So this morning y'all kind of learned the routine. I'm going to ask Pastor James and Pastor Ken if they would come. And today, as you come and receive these elements, for those of us that are in that moment where we feel stuck, today may we know there is hope. Those of us that feel that there is no hope, that we are discouraged to the point where we can't walk, that these elements remind us that there is a God who is present with us. Today, as we receive these elements, I just invite you to hold them, to reflect, and to know that is in this table, we are invited to life, to hope, to knowing that God is present even in the moments when we are stuck. Let us come, we receive the elements.